After my mom's death, I inherited jewelry worth 30,000, but my greedy sister-in-law stole all of it. When I told my husband that his sister was a thief, he became furious and screamed, "How dare you accuse my sister of stealing?" Then, without warning, he smashed a heavy serving bowl on my head. I collapsed to the floor, badly hurt. But my 9-year-old son did something that made my husband freeze in fear, but then suddenly a shocking. Some moments in life don't come with a warning. They explode into your world and leave everything shattered. The gold jewelry my mother and grandmother left me, gone just like that. I knew deep down who had taken it, and when I told my husband Jason the truth, he didn't ask questions. He didn't try to understand. Instead, he snapped. His eyes turned cold, and before I could react, he grabbed a heavy ceramic serving bowl from the table and smashed it into the side of my head. The pain was instant. I collapsed to the floor, dizzy, bleeding, unable to move. But just when I thought everything was slipping away, my son did something that stunned me even more than the attack itself. My name is Olivia, and I'm 34 years old. If someone had told me 5 years ago that my life would spiral into fear, betrayal, and broken trust, I might have laughed. Back then, I was a hopeful young mother, deeply in love with my husband Jason. I believed in the strength of family, the power of forgiveness, and the idea that love could overcome anything. But reality has a way of revealing truths we try so hard to ignore. Today, I live in Brookhaven with my 2 children, Zoe, my 15-year-old daughter, full of teenage energy and rebellion, and Leo, my sweet, observant 9-year-old son, who carries more maturity in his small frame than most adults I know. I work as a receptionist at a local dental clinic, managing calls, patients, and paperwork with a polite smile, even on days when my heart feels like it's cracking underneath. To anyone looking from the outside, we might seem like an average family trying to make ends meet. But inside our home, something darker had taken root. Something that grew slowly, quietly, until it became impossible to ignore. Jason, my husband, is 38. When we first met, he was charming, ambitious, and full of promises. We got married young, moved into a small house in Brookhaven, and built a life that seemed picture-perfect on the surface. But with time, the man I loved started changing. The charm faded, replaced by cold stares and sharp words. His ambition twisted into resentment, mostly aimed at me. He began criticizing everything I did. The way I folded the laundry, the meals I cooked, the tone I used when speaking to the kids. It was like walking on broken glass, always trying not to cut myself. I told myself he was just stressed, that things would go back to how they were. But they didn't. They only got worse. Zoe, our daughter, has always been headstrong and fiercely independent. She questions everything, and lately her tone has carried an edge that mirrors her father's. I worry about her more than she knows. Leo, on the other hand, is soft-spoken and deeply sensitive. He notices everything, my forced smiles, the tension in the air, and the tears I try to hide. Despite the cracks forming in our family, I kept moving forward. I worked, cooked, cleaned, and did everything I could to protect my children from the growing storm. But one thing I held onto tightly, both emotionally and literally, was the gold jewelry my late mother and grandmother passed down to me. It wasn't just valuable, it was sacred. A connection to the strong women I came from. I kept it locked in a wooden box in my closet, hidden beneath old blankets. It was meant for Zoe and Leo one day, a part of their legacy. I never imagined that sacred box would become the trigger for the most terrifying night of my life. It was a Thursday evening, and I had just returned home from work. My feet ached, and my mind was clouded with the usual exhaustion. The sun was setting outside, casting golden light across the living room where Zoe sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, and Leo was quietly drawing in his sketchbook on the floor. Jason hadn't come home yet, but his sister Jenna was visiting, as she often did lately. She was in the kitchen, sipping coffee like she owned the place, casually browsing through her phone. Jenna had always been entitled, but over the past few weeks her presence had become more frequent and more invasive. She never offered to help, criticized everything from my cooking to my parenting, and treated the house like her personal lounge. After putting my bag away, I went to the bedroom to grab a small amount of cash I'd tucked away in the jewelry box. We needed groceries for the weekend, and I remembered placing a few emergency bills there just in case. But the moment I opened the closet, my heart stopped. The blankets were shifted. The box wasn't in its usual position. I dug deeper, and when I finally pulled it out and opened the lid, it was empty. Every single piece of heirloom gold jewelry was gone. The thick bangles with floral engravings, the 22K gold necklace shaped like a blooming flower, the ruby stone earrings, the bracelet with Leo and Zoe's initials, the engraved ring passed down from my grandmother, gone. A wave of panic hit me. My hands trembled as I pulled out clothes and scanned the closet, praying I had just moved them and forgotten. But deep down, I knew the truth. Someone had stolen them. And only one person had been inside this house recently who had no respect for boundaries, Jenna. My stomach twisted. I stood frozen for a moment, trying to steady my breath. The jewelry wasn't just worth $30,000, it was part of my identity, my family story, and a gift I wanted my children to treasure long after I was gone. My blood was boiling, but I knew I had to approach this carefully. Jason could be volatile when it came to Jenna, and any mention of her wrongdoing had always led to defensiveness or worse, rage. Still, I couldn't let this go. I had to say something. Jason walked in just after dinner, his tie loosened and his face tight with irritation. He dropped his keys on the table like always, barely greeting anyone as he passed through the living room and into the kitchen, where Jenna was still lounging casually. The moment felt heavy, but I knew I couldn't wait. My hands were cold and my heart pounded in my chest. "Jason," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to talk to you. It's important." He looked at me, already annoyed. "What now?" I hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "My jewelry box is empty. All the heirloom gold, the pieces for my mom and grandma, they're gone." He blinked, then narrowed his eyes. "What are you saying?" "I think Jenna took them." My voice cracked slightly, but I forced myself to hold his gaze. "No one else has been in our room. I saw her wearing my ring last week. I didn't think much of it then, but now it's all missing. I can't stay silent." The kitchen fell completely silent. Even Jenna, who had just taken a sip of coffee, froze mid-motion. Jason's face went red almost instantly. He turned to me, jaw clenched, eyes flashing. "You're accusing my sister of theft?" he barked. "Are you insane, Olivia?" "I'm not accusing, I'm telling you the truth." My voice was trembling now, but I stood firm. The box was hidden. Only someone who knew where to look. "Stop it!" he roared, stepping closer. "You always hated her, didn't you? You'll stoop this low just to push her out." "I'm not making anything up," I cried. "That jewelry was worth $30,000. It was meant for our kids. How could you not?" Before I could finish the sentence, Jason's rage snapped into violence. He turned toward the dining table, grabbed the large ceramic serving bowl from the center, and in one swift, brutal motion, he slammed it against the side of my head. The impact sent me crashing to the floor. The bowl shattered beside me. My vision blurred as I felt warm blood trickling near my temple. My ears rang. Everything around me slowed, except for the scream. "Mom!" Leo's voice cut through the chaos, high and shaking. He rushed over and dropped to his knees beside me. I tried to speak but couldn't find the words. My head throbbed. My body was in shock. Leo scrambled to his feet, hands shaking as he grabbed the phone from the counter. His small fingers moved quickly. He knew what to do. I had taught him just in case. He dialed 911. "Please." I heard him say through the haze, "My dad hit my mom with something heavy. She's bleeding. Please come fast." The room started spinning. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the couch. My head throbbed with a sharp, pulsing pain, and there was a cold cloth pressed gently against the side of my face. For a moment, I couldn't remember what had happened. Then it all came rushing back. The argument, the accusation, the bowl, Jason's fury, and Leo, my brave little boy. I turned my head slightly and saw him sitting on the floor near me, his knees hugged to his chest, face pale, eyes wide with fear. Elena, my best friend and neighbor, was crouched beside him, whispering softly and holding his hand. "Mom," Leo whispered as he saw me move. "Are you okay?" Before I could answer, the sharp knock of urgency echoed through the front door. "Brookhaven Police, open up." Elena rushed to let them in. 2 officers entered, firm but calm, their eyes scanning the room. One of them, a tall woman with a stern but compassionate expression, immediately walked over to me. "Ma'am, are you all right? Can you tell us what happened?" I tried to sit up, wincing from the pain, but nodded slowly. "He hit me," I said, my voice weak but clear. "He used that bowl, it broke. I think I passed out. My son called you." The other officer was already speaking to Leo, asking him gentle questions. Leo pointed to the broken ceramic shards on the floor, then to the spot where Jason had stood. "Where is he now?" the female officer asked. I turned my head toward the hallway. Jason stood frozen near the doorway, his arms crossed, eyes wide with disbelief. But it wasn't guilt I saw in his eyes. It was fear. The fear of losing control, of being held accountable. "Sir," the male officer said firmly, "turn around and place your hands behind your back." "You've got to be kidding me," Jason muttered, stepping back. "This is assault, sir, in front of a minor. You need to come with us." Jason opened his mouth to protest, but before he could say another word, the officer stepped forward, restrained him, and within seconds, he was in handcuffs. Zoe had come out of her room during the commotion and stood frozen by the stairs, her hand covering her mouth. Her eyes met mine, full of confusion and pain. I reached out to her. "It's over," I whispered. Jason was led out of the house as neighbors peeked through their blinds, sirens flashing outside. For the first time in years, I felt a crack of air push through the weight on my chest. Leo sat beside me, holding my hand tightly. Elena stroked his back, tears in her eyes. "You are so brave," she whispered to him. "You did the right thing." And he did. Because of him, we were finally safe. After the police took Jason away in handcuffs, the house was still, but my head throbbed with a deep pulsing pain. Elena helped me stand, supporting me gently as I swayed slightly. The ceramic bowl had done more than just hurt, it had rattled something inside me. I could feel the swelling building near my temple, and every step made the pounding worse. You need to go to the hospital, Elena said firmly. You're bleeding and might have a concussion. I nodded slowly. My kids were shaken but safe. Now it was my turn to take care of myself for once. Elena drove me to Brookhaven General Hospital. I sat in the passenger seat in silence, holding an ice pack against my head, my mind swimming with everything that had happened. The flashing lights, Leo's frightened voice, Jason's rage, the broken bowl. At the ER I was taken in quickly. A nurse asked me a series of questions. How I got the injury, how long I was unconscious, if I had any dizziness or vomiting. I told her everything. She didn't flinch, she just nodded, typed into her tablet, and reassured me that I was in good hands. The doctor came in not long after. He examined the swelling, cleaned the wound, and ordered a CT scan. The results confirmed a mild concussion and a large contusion on the right side of my head. I was lucky, he said. A little more force, and things could have been much worse. They gave me pain Medicat ion and instructed me to rest for a few days, avoid bright lights and screens, and return immediately if symptoms worsened. Before I left, the nurse returned with a file in her hands. These are your medical reports and injury documentation, she said gently. We've noted that it was a domestic assault. You'll want to keep this safe. It can help you legally. I took the folder with trembling hands, staring at the papers inside, photographs of the injury, the doctor's notes, emergency admission records, everything I would need to prove what had been done to me. As I stepped back out into the sunlight, Elena waiting beside the car, I felt a strange kind of strength wash over me. I wasn't just healing, I was building a case. One that would ensure Jason couldn't talk his way out of this. One that would protect me and my children for good. That night, the house was quiet, eerily so. After the police left, after the neighbors returned to their own lives, and after Zoe finally went to her room, I sat on the couch with an ice pack pressed against the swelling on my head. My body ached, but not as much as my heart. Elena stayed with us, refusing to leave until she knew I was all right. Leo had finally fallen asleep on the couch beside me, his small hand still clutching mine. I looked down at him, overwhelmed with a mixture of guilt and pride. My 9-year-old son had saved me. He had been braver than most adults I knew. Elena placed a hot cup of tea in front of me and sat down beside me. You have to press charges, she said gently, and not just for what Jason did but for the theft too. I nodded slowly. I will. I've had enough. He crossed the line tonight. He almost crossed every line. The next morning, I visited the emergency room. The doctor confirmed that I had a mild concussion and prescribed rest, painkillers, and follow-up visits. The nurse documented my injuries in detail and handed me a copy of the report. This will help your legal case, she said kindly. And so I began documenting everything. With Elena's support, I met with a family lawyer, filed for an emergency restraining order, and officially began divorce proceedings. Jason was being held in police custody, and I was told he would be arraigned in court soon. But I wasn't done yet. I also filed a theft report against Jenna. When I explained the situation, the missing jewelry, Jenna wearing one of the rings, and the sudden disappearance of the heirloom pieces, the detective assigned to my case nodded gravely. We'll look into her, he said. If we can recover the jewelry and prove intent to sell, this could turn into a felony theft case. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was being heard. I wasn't just a frightened wife anymore. I was a mother, a woman, and a survivor, finally standing up for what was right. 2 weeks after filing the theft report, I got a call from Detective Alvarez, the officer assigned to the case. I had just come home from work when my phone rang. Seeing the number made my heart skip a beat. Miss Olivia, he said, we've executed a search warrant on Jenna Martin's apartment. We found multiple pieces of jewelry that matched the photos and descriptions you provided. We also spoke to a pawn shop owner who confirmed she attempted to sell a gold bracelet last week. I stood frozen in the middle of my living room, a flood of emotions rushing through me, relief, anger, and disbelief. Is she in custody? I asked. Yes, he replied. We arrested her this morning. She's being charged with grand larceny, possession of stolen property, and attempted fraud. Given the value of the items, $30 $0, and the deliberate effort to sell them, this qualifies as a Class C felony. The case is moving forward. Later that week, I visited the police station to identify and reclaim my jewelry. The moment I saw the thick bangles, my mother's necklace, the ruby earrings, the gold bracelet with Zoe and Leo's initials, I burst into tears. These weren't just items, they were memories. Love. My legacy. Detective Alvarez handed me the release form. You'll be getting all of it back, he said. We're holding her accountable. In court, Jenna sat expressionless in the defendant's chair. Her lawyer argued for leniency, claiming it was a moment of desperation, but the judge didn't flinch. For theft exceeding $30,000, the judge declared, and an attempt to unlawfully profit from family heirlooms, Jenna Martin is sentenced to 2 years in state prison, with mandatory restitution to the victim and a felony theft record permanently attached to her name. She would serve real time, no probation, no house arrest, just the cold reality of her actions. As I walked out of the courtroom with the jewelry box in my hands, I felt the weight of betrayal start to lift. I hadn't just recovered my possessions, I had reclaimed my worth. The courtroom smelled like old wood and dust, still and quiet, except for the shuffling of papers and the occasional murmur from the lawyers. I sat on the bench, hands clasped tightly in my lap, waiting to face Jason for the final time. Across the aisle, he looked smaller than I remembered. Dressed in a wrinkled shirt and shackled at the wrists, he wouldn't meet my eyes. Gone was the arrogant smirk, the air of control. In its place was a man, unraveling. The judge called my name. I stood, my legs trembling but steady, and walked to the front to testify. I spoke about that night, about the argument, the stolen jewelry, about how Jason picked up the heavy ceramic serving bowl and struck me so hard that I lost consciousness in front of our son. I described the swelling, the concussion, the fear in Leo's voice as he called 911. I showed the medical report, the nurse's notes, the police photos of the broken bowl. I didn't cry, I didn't shout, I simply told the truth, calm, clear, and complete. When I stepped down, I saw Jason looking at me for the first time, but I felt nothing, no fear, no sadness, just a quiet, grounded strength. The judge reviewed the evidence, including Leo's recorded 911 call and Jenna's theft case. After a brief deliberation, he delivered a sentence that gave me chills. Jason Martin is hereby sentenced to 5 years in state prison for aggravated assault in the presence of a minor domestic violence and endangering the welfare of his children. He would serve time without early release, followed by mandatory rehabilitation programs and a permanent restraining order preventing him from contacting me or the children ever again. Jason's had dropped. There was no protest this time, no arrogance, just silence. Later that day, I signed the final divorce papers. After years of fear and pain, Jason was no longer part of our lives. Not in body, not in name, not in power. I walked out of the courthouse with my head high and my children waiting for me. The chains were broken, and justice, real, firm justice, had finally been served. The house felt different now, not quieter but freer. The shadows that once clung to every corner, the fear, the tension, the constant walking on eggshells had lifted. In their place was light and space to breathe. The kind of peace I had nearly forgotten existed. Zoe was coming back to herself. The defensiveness in her tone was softening, and her late-night silence was replaced by quiet music or the tapping of her fingers as she did her homework. Sometimes she'd sit beside me, head resting on my shoulder, just like she used to when she was little. Leo, my brave, beautiful boy, had become even more thoughtful. He asked more questions now, not out of fear, but curiosity, about safety, about families, about truth. He still slept close to me sometimes, and I never said no. I owed him more than I could ever repay, and me? I was healing. Every morning I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had survived, not just an attack but years of emotional erosion. I had found my voice again, and with it, I discovered a strength I didn't know I had. Elena stood by my side through it all, helping with court documents, bringing over dinner when I was too drained to cook, and holding my hand through moments when the weight of everything threatened to pull me down again. One evening we sat together on my back porch, watching the sun dip below the rooftops. "I can't believe it's really over," I said quietly. "It's not over," Elena smiled. "It's just beginning. Now, you get to write the life you deserve." I nodded, holding a warm cup of tea in my hands. She was right. The future still held uncertainty, but for the first time I wasn't afraid of it. I was free, I was safe, and I was no longer alone. My name is Olivia. I'm 34 years old. I was silenced. I was broken, but I rose. I fought. I healed. And now I'm finally whole. Thank you for staying with me until the end of my story. If my journey touched your heart or reminded you that you're not alone in your struggles, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Your support means the world to me, and it helps others find these stories of strength, healing, and hope. I'm Olivia, and I survived. And if I can, so can you.